welcome to the Reading FC Community Trust Bite-Sized Podcast, brought to you by the Premier League Primary Stars team, where we speak to practitioners from the education and football world to discuss ways we can have a positive impact on the primary PE landscape. Today we welcome Reading FC Academy coach Ryan Nevard, who's going to be discussing with us how to manage success.
Brilliant. So welcome, Ryan. Thank you for giving your time today. How are you? How's things been?
Good, thanks. Yeah, it's not been too bad. Trying to keep busy on furlough, but yeah, it's not been too bad, to be honest. It's been okay. Used it as a bit of self-development time, which I think I found really useful, to be honest with you. But yeah, no, good to see you. Thanks for letting me come on.
No worries.
Pleasure. I think we've all done a little bit of not soul searching, but we've all been on about 10 to 20 webinars.
Yeah.
Start, so I think I'm
minimum.
sure you're in that category.
So for those listening in today, did you want to explain a little bit about your journey and your kind of journey in football from education to academy, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'll start when I went to university. Went to Liverpool John Moores University, sport science in football. Was fortunate enough to get an internship at Everton Football. Always knew that I wanted to work in football, to be honest. And then when I left university, came to Community Trust as a casual coach. So worked with Chris then before Phil was there.
Yeah,
worked with you, Chris,
at the same time, didn't we?
Yeah. So worked with Chris and then went to Aldershot, where I was foundation phase lead at Aldershot, working with the 7s to 12s and managing those age groups, which was a really good experience. Done that for 2 years, then came back to the Community Trust on a casual basis first, and then went full time and obviously worked with both of you guys, as you'll know. But then, yeah, as I've got some stick for, wasn't there for too long. I don't even think I made it to a year. And then obviously started part time in the academy, taking the under 9s. And then went full time in the academy just over a year ago. So had my year anniversary in my role during lockdown, which fortunately I couldn't celebrate it. But yeah, so now obviously working in the academy, coaching the under 9s, and supporting my line manager with the under 7s and 8s as well, which has been really good fun with the little ones, which has been good.
Fantastic. So yeah, really good background. Like, it's great that you sort of understand what we do as well. Obviously, having been part of the community, we know you quite well as well. So we'll be able to flow. This conversation should flow quite nicely.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Cool. So we wanted to talk to you today, Ryan, about how to sort of manage success. And we think you're quite a good person to talk to about this, because not only do you work in sort of quite a pressurized elite environment in the academy, but obviously you do have experience working throughout all the sort of school programs that we've done, and so you can probably relate it quite well to a sort of a teaching basis as well. So quite a vague question to start, but just sort of how do you sort of approach success sort of as a term within your practice? What does it mean to you, and how do you think about it when you're planning?
I think straight away got to realise that success looks different for every individual, and that's even going into schools. Like, as you guys will know, when working in schools, when you've got 30 children, you have some children, I think as Chris you said before, you might have some children that are in an academy and are excellent and it's football that week, and then you've got some children that actually can't even kick a ball or really aren't interested. And I think understanding that success looks different for every child. For one, it might be using their weaker foot, because they can use their strong one really well and challenging them that way. For one of them, it may literally just be take part in a whole session and without sitting out. And obviously within my environment, it looks very different in terms of that they're all very good little footballers. You know, they're for their age, you know, they're very good. But understanding what they need individually in order to hopefully get them to, you know, where we would like them to be.
And I was just going to add to that. That just made me go back to when I was at school. There was a guy who we sit next to in class who ended up playing professionally for Aldershot for a little while, but he's done kind of the non-league circuit since. And he was such a good all-rounder, and he kind of self-managed that expectation really well when it comes to his success. He's quite grounded. But it's obviously in a secondary school. But then there's another boy in my class who success for him was just making the team. So for him, he was chuffed to bits. He had the confidence to go with it, saying, "Oh, look at me, I've done this." But then actually on the complete other side, you had a very well-grounded young man whose success kind of came naturally to him. He kind of took it all in stride, but obviously that's kind of the next stage up in the secondary environment. But that's just one thing that stood out to me straight away.
Yeah. So to sort of build on that, obviously I've been very fortunate that I've been able to come and watch some of your and help with some of your sessions within the academy.
Fortunate.
Very fortunate. But like you say, you've got some incredibly talented players, but ultimately they're under 10s. Was it under 10s? Under 9s. So they're not very old. So there's a lot going on developmentally. So what would you say some of the sort of challenges you've had in terms of success you've had with that group?
For me, the biggest thing that I learned when I first started was, and people always go, "Oh, like Reading Academy under 9s, they must be so good, they must be amazing." And what I say to people is, and I think, Chris, I think I've probably said this to you, is actually they're very good at football for their age, but they're also only 8-year-old children. So they are like any other 8-year-old child.
Yeah.
They I don't want to use the word misbehave, but they have moments when they can't control their emotions. They can't communicate the way they're feeling. And for me, like you said right at the beginning, when I have certain things as a coach, and a curriculum that I need to deliver, and because it's an academy environment, players that I need to try and get to a certain point, when they're having those days when they're not feeling themselves and they've had a bit of a rubbish day at school, they've fallen out with their best friend, or they've had a little bit of an argument with mum or dad on the car on the way here, or they came home from school, quick dinner, rushed to football training, and they've got caught in traffic and they're late and all those things. Those are the challenges, like normal challenges that anyone would have within school or any football. But I think because of the environment that I'm in, I would feel pressure on myself to like get them to actually be striving towards that footballing goal. Whereas actually they just need support emotionally at that time. And I suppose that's more so for me than them. But obviously, look at that success. You could argue that, well, you would say that if they're not in the right place emotionally, I can't get them to what they need in terms of success, in terms of technical, tactically. And that's definitely something that I found out very early on that was a challenge.
And could I just lead on from that?
Yep.
So something that came to me was so many aspects you've just mentioned there, but you said your academy players are coming back in September, heading into October. How do you see success kind of coming out of that kind of COVID lockdown period? And we spoke about before in trying to re-engage children when expectations or levels might be a little bit here, there, everywhere.
Yeah.
So what's your kind of personal thought on that?
I think that's an amazing question, first of all, because I think there's a lot of people that will be so set on getting back to coaching themselves they won't think about what the kids need. And I think it's really important to understand this situation for everyone has been so traumatic. Traumatic. Even as adults, I've had days and weeks where I've actually really struggled with it and it's been really difficult. Imagine you're an 8-year-old child. Imagine you're 9, 10, 11, whatever age, even if you're a teenager, what you've had stripped away from you. And that's why I think coming straight back in, reconnecting is going to be the most important thing. I think about it from the boys that I coach, that 9 years old now, all of them. 6 months is a massive chunk of their life, massive chunk of their life, and how they would have developed as children, not physically, emotionally, psychologically, socially in that time. The child that I knew 6 months ago isn't the child that is now. So I need to reconnect and understand who they are as a child now, because what they were 6 months ago, there may be elements of, but they've changed massively, especially because of the whole situation. One of the biggest things that I've spoke about to our head of psychology just a couple of times is understanding if anything's happened with their family, if actually COVID has affected anyone in their family and unfortunately they've been ill, or anything like that. And actually, one of the things as well is, how are they feeling coming back in? Are they anxious? You know, are they worried about catching the virus? Because if that's the case, we need to help them and let them know what safety measures we've put in place to safeguard them from the virus and ensure that we're doing things as well. Because I go to shops now, I'm anxious about it. You know, I have my face mask, I have my hand sanitizer, as everyone does. You know, and it does make me feel anxious. So if you're an 8-year-old child, I think those are the things we need to get to first. Is actually how are they feeling about this whole situation, and also like they just want to come and just play with their mates. So just let them do that. Let them play games, and then actually just reconnect with them in the session. Have a bit of a laugh with them. You know, speak to their parents. What have they been like? What's gone on? You know, how have they felt? How has it been? How was homeschooling? You know, because they might have a horrendous period of relationship with their parent from the last 6 months where parents have tried to play teacher. You know, I think there's so many things that football is actually the coping mechanism, and just letting them play and crack on for the first few weeks. I'm not even talking one session, I'm talking few weeks. And just use your sessions to reconnect and understand who they are as a child now, as opposed to 6 months ago.
I think that's such an amazing sort of tip, really, just not just for football coaches, but for practitioners in all sorts of shapes and sizes. But I know from, as we said at the start, we've all done a few webinars now. We've all looked at videos. We've all seen really great practices that we all want to try. We've all learned a new skill that we want to test ourselves as practitioners. But we can't do that at the expense of the people we're there for. So I think that's really important, that that's sort of the focus.
Just on that really quickly, one guy I've loved, I'm listening to like 2 or 3 webinars from him in this period, is Chris van der Hagen from the Belgian FA. And his kind of outset, and it's something that I probably think I've done, but on reflection through this time, I've probably not done as well as I could have. And he basically just says, rather than trying to coach how you want to coach how you think the child will learn, and just change the lens that you look at coaching. You know, and it's also like, I'm reading a book at the minute, The Winning Mindset by Professor Damien Hughes, and there's a quote in there that says, "Art of being a coach is, what was it? Not how many balls you can juggle, but how many your student can catch."
Right.
So I've got that definitely wrong. But it's something along those lines.
I know where you're going with it.
And it's basically like, it's not about me and my knowledge and in the session getting all that out. It's actually what knowledge can you take in. If that's one little bit, then, and again, linking into success. One child might be able to take 1 bit of information. One child might be able to take 2. One might be able to take 3. One child might have to have that 1 bit of information broken down into 2 separate parts, or given a little bit more time, because one may get number 1 in 1 week. Another child might get number 1 in 3 weeks, and that's fine.
Yeah, actually, I think that's a really interesting way of looking at the sort of success part of it. So I'm trying to think through the sort of the PE teacher lens now.
Yep.
Actually, that's probably a subject where fortunately there's not as much sort of scrutiny. There's not as much focus on an end result, although there's objectives. There is no exam. There is no SATs test. There is no A level sort of on their physical sort of side, thankfully, with what's going on at the moment. But so that's probably quite a good opportunity to sort of give them that low pressure environment, just to sort of let them play, let them almost reintegrate with each other as a class, and just sort of give you that chance to connect with them, and just do little things, little challenges, little individual things. And that's probably quite a good model for actually finding individual success as well.
Definitely, especially I think especially within primary schools with the younger children, a lot of them probably, I'm not sure what sports they enjoy. So actually it's an opportunity to go, what sports do you enjoy? And making it fun straight away is going to allow them to enjoy a lot more than if you're making all of them really, really strict, really disciplined. And actually, like, I remember, you know, when I was in school, if it was football, you play a football game. If it was hockey, you play a hockey game. If it was basketball, you play a basketball game. There's not a better way to learn the sport than actually playing the game, especially when you're experimenting with what sport you want and what you want to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Do you want to jump in and add anything to that, Phil, or should we sort of move it on a little bit?
I would say those points have been really, really good. So I was just going to say move on to the next part. I think the discussion's been really good. So hopefully it'll continue in the next part.
Cool. So just obviously along similar sort of lines, have you got any, and obviously this would probably differ for someone working within a PE environment, have you got any sort of specific strategies that you use, whether yourself or as a whole at Reading, to sort of to help manage that success? Because obviously it's quite a success driven environment. Yeah. So is there anything that you use to sort of address that?
Yeah, so within the academy we have individual learning plans for each of the players that is set for the season. And they're just four points that don't change unless they really need to across the course of the season. And then obviously through the PMA, which is software set by the Premier League that we have to put session plans, etc. on every 3 weeks, we set the boys an individual target. And then what I've done this year is printed that off, laminated it, put it on my board so that every session is there for them to see. And again, that's different for every individual. And then that's what I try and focus on. And again, it will be related to, in terms of our curriculum, what the team elements are and what we're looking at as a whole group. And it'll be fit into what individually they need within that, if that makes sense, just broken down for them individually. That's one thing that we do. Also, like, it's been really interesting this year for me, just talking to the boys about what they want and what they want to get better at, because I think it's such a simple question, and I think we really underestimate the intelligence of the children. And there's a great video from a webinar called Austin's Butterfly, and if you go and Google it on YouTube, it's linked to success a little bit, I suppose, because basically it's all about children giving children feedback, and about this child who's drawing a butterfly, and it starts off and it's not great. I'm not going to say rubbish, it's not great. And the children, how they give him feedback, and how the feedback is so simple and clear. Within about 4 drawings later, he has literally done the most amazing butterfly I've ever seen in my life. Not ever in my life, but it's really good, especially for the age that he is. Austin's Butterfly, go give it a look. And in terms of getting to success, I think rather than us going, and like I said before, rather than us going, I've got all this knowledge, I need to give it to the kids, actually, sometimes they can put it in a much better way that's actually easier for themselves or others to understand. I think I've gone a little bit off topic there, but
I disagree. I think that's fantastic. I think actually, looking at it from that PE lens, it's a little different to your environment because yours is more sort of outcome driven. But actually, there's lots of things in that's very similar to what a teacher will have to do anyway. They will have to plan their sort of term, and they will have to put some outcomes that as a class they would like to achieve. But actually, I think that could be a really effective way of demonstrating that your class has improved, is by giving that ownership to the children, particularly if they're sort of, as soon as they're old enough to have that conversation. Let them pick their own target, because immediately you will get that buy-in for them. If they've set themselves the goal, it's not teachers saying you've got to learn how to do this within PE. It's I've chosen that I want to do this. So immediately you've got that buy-in, and it's 100%. So simple. It's so simple, like you say.
100%, and you get that motivation. And I think, again, you say in there, like, some kids may never been given the opportunity to have ownership and really take charge of their own development or their own success, or striving towards their own success. And actually, they might really thrive if we give it to them. But if we don't ever give them the opportunity to have it, we won't ever know.
And I guess kind of with that peer-to-peer feedback, you can kind of tailor it and manage it in respect of how you guide that discussion to go, and then to build on their success levels from there, or to build their confidence, which ultimately links into that success, is a completely different way of looking at it, and kind of guided discovery, in a sense that they're on their own path to finding what works well for them and how they see that improving and pushing.
Yeah, no, definitely.
That's one of the brilliant things about these little podcasts that we've been doing, is that I've got a little sort of idea from every single one, and the little idea that's just clicked in my head is that actually teachers have enough on their plate to do without having to write an individual report for every single player on PE. Why can't every child come up with their own goal? Teacher takes those, happy days. You've then got 30 personalised reports based on what that child wanted to achieve. How brilliant is that as sort of 100%. Evidence of what you've been doing in PE? That's so simple.
100%. And when I was at Aldershot with player reviews, the players were asked 3 questions and asked to present to us. And some of them done it on a PowerPoint, and PowerPoints that I can't even make with transitions and animations and all that jazz. Some of them was just a bit of paper. And that was amazing because it actually gave you a real good insight into them as children, how they can articulate, their understanding of what went well, what didn't, and what were their highlights. Those are the 3 questions that we had. That was really powerful.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, no, so I think there's some really, really good stuff there. I mean, again, something that these podcasts seem to be showing to me personally is that there's such massive transferability between what coaches do and what teachers do. Obviously, your environments are different, but ultimately we're all striving to do the same thing. So some really, really good stuff there. So just for me, I think we'll call it a day there, just so we can consider this a bite-sized one. I'm sure we could talk for another 45-50 minutes if we wanted to.
I can, Chris.
Yeah, I do know you can. I know that I enjoy it as well. But we'll have to get you back another time. But for now, massive thank you for your time, Ryan.
And thank you for letting me come on, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I mean, thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ryan.
Perfect. Cheers, guys.